Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. I left my notes over there, which makes this the news and events for Tuesday, October 14th, day 1329 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. Hey, Bjorn. Hey, Guard. I'm Peter Alexievich. This is the Live at 5 from Kyiv, coming to you live from this major European capital, which for the most part is in darkness. You may have seen reports that Kyiv got hit tonight and that the power is out. And for much of the city it is. And we're lucky. We just got lucky. That's all. Right now the power is on here. Hey, June. Hey, Maggie May. How's everybody doing tonight? The power is on. I have no water, though. Hey, Kiwi Annie. Hey, Manuel. Hey, Debbie. Hey, Mike now. Marius. Hey, Nightshade. Hey, Flip. How you doing, buddy? This shirt is terrible, huh? It makes it awfully hard to read the comments. Sorry about that. Hey, FDL. Hey, Jeff. How's everybody doing? How's your harvest coming in, Jeff? Hey, Roy Daniels. Hey, Super User. Hey, Feisty. Hey, Mike Kelly. Hey, Dave. Oh, yeah. So, well, we'll wait until Seawolf gets in here, but it's Nutmegger's birthday. And so Nutmegger is our sponsor tonight, but wait until Seawolf gets in and we'll all thank him. Hey, Richard Prexis. Almost done planting. What are you planting? Winter wheat? Winter rye? What are you planting now? There's Seawolf and Nutmegger. Evening. It's Nutmegger's birthday, everybody, so let's wish Nutmegger a very happy birthday. And to his dad, Seawolf, a very happy birthday to the boy. Winter wheat. Nice. Trump just announced... What did Trump just announce? He's signing to buy TikTok. Well, he's not buying it, right? It's Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison, the billionaire behind Oracle systems. If you know Oracle, they are the premier database specialists out there. And they're an American company. And Larry is very much in Trump's corner. So you think about the terrible things, the honest terrible things that I say about Donald Trump. I don't know how long I'm going to last on this platform. I got to tell you. So I do want to encourage everybody to, at the very least, please get yourself a free Patreon account where I post videos on an irregular basis, I admit. Most of the videos that I post go here. But I do post things over there that I can't post anywhere else. I have a series over there called Videos I Can't Post on TikTok. And it's not the kind of gory war videos that are so popular on Telegram. I don't do anything like that. But there are lots of videos that fall outside the community guideline standards of TikTok that I do post over there. I would say, too, guys, I am in the middle of this October Patreon drive. I said a week ago Friday, 10 days ago, it would change my life if I could get 100 people to join the Patreon at $5 a month, right? And Mike Nally took up the challenge, and that led to a wave of like 5 people joining that night, which has now turned into a campaign because we've had 25 people join the Patreon at just $5 a month in the last 10 days. So for anybody who can do that, right? If you can't do it, I get it. That's why there's a free membership. There is no barrier to entry. But if you enjoy this channel and enjoy the conversations we have and the insights that I try to bring from Ukraine, then please join the Patreon. At least get yourself a free account. That would be great. Hey, Neil Steven. Hey, Lars. Hey, Feisty. Hey, Nunya. Okay, now look, there's a bunch of things that I want to talk about, but I have to say that I think the biggest story today is Putin's apology to the Azeris. Putin went on, Vladimir Putin, or one of his body doubles, right? Hey, Avenir, thank you. Putin, or one of his body doubles, went on TV today. And not only did he admit that the Russians had shot down the Azeri civilian airliner last year, he apologized for it. He apologized. Putin is so weak today that he had to go on TV and apologize to the Azerbaijanis for having knocked their plane out of the sky. Now, why would an autocrat strongman make a move like this? Because he is losing. He is losing everything. He has lost Armenia. Armenia has turned away from Russia. He has lost Syria. We see right now still the Russian diesel-powered submarine, the Novorossiysk, Novorossiysk, right? Limping its way home, 4,000 kilometers to Murmansk, because there's no Tartus base to go to in the Mediterranean. Mark Rutte was making fun of the Mediterranean fleet because it's reduced to nothing. And Putin's ability to project power in that part of the world is wildly diminished. We see now that Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Armenia are turning further and further away from Moscow. We see the Trans-Balkan pipeline, which is now moving 80% of Kazakh oil. 80% of Kazakh oil that used to go through Russia, that Russia used to make money on. They're not making that money anymore. It's going to the Azeris. We saw the Azeris and the Azerbaijanis fly to Washington, D.C. to sign their contrary to popular belief, it was not Albania, right? Let's just be clear on that. It was not Albania. It was Armenia and Azerbaijan. Fly to Washington, D.C. to sign their peace accords with Trump. They didn't go to Moscow and sign them with Putin. A year ago, such a thing would have been unthinkable. But because it has happened now, Moscow finally had to admit that they shot down that plane a year ago, which we all knew, and they had to apologize for it. Putin is on the back foot everywhere, and that is what I want to talk about tonight. How badly Russia is losing. We have not talked much about the front line because the front line has not essentially changed, right? The Russians have been 12 kilometers outside of Pokrovsk for a year. For a year. Well, Zoe's not going to admit to MH17. I mean, come on, that's ancient history at this point. But still, this is movement in the right direction. Hey, Birdie B. Now, on the subject of how weak Putin is and what is coming at him, tomorrow is the meeting of the Rammstien group. That's the right. Informally, we refer to it as the Rammstien group. Its official name is the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. It's a group of 60 nations that support Ukraine in its fight against Russia's illegal war and attempted genocide in the temporarily occupied territories. The U.S. representative to NATO, Whitaker, says that at tomorrow's meeting, the U.S. will make an important announcement regarding weapons to Ukraine. Now, of course, there's a great deal of speculation that that will be Tomahawk missiles. And it may be. That remains to be seen. Interfax news agency published an interesting piece yesterday that reminded us that Trump used Tomahawk missiles against Russian assets in Syria back in 2018. Remember that? He was at dinner with Xi Jinping. The missile strike happened. He turned to Xi Jinping and confidently said, "We have just sent missiles into Iraq." I swear to God, that is what he said. Of course, he meant Syria, where those missiles did do an effective job against the Russians there. He's used them against the Russians before. The word on the street is that these missiles will be used exclusively to hit Russian energy infrastructure. Russian energy infrastructure. So we shall see. We shall see. The word is that, according to reporting in the Financial Times, the word is that America is providing intelligence and vulnerability assessments on targets across Russia to the Ukrainians. And the Ukrainians are then doing the target selections. Now, there were two, before we get to how Ukraine is hurting Russia, there were two significant strikes against Ukraine. Well, I guess we can say three if I have no water and most of the city is in darkness here, right? So there's that going on. But additionally, and I got to tell you, the silence from the world community on this is deafening. So what we saw yesterday was a Russian strike against the UN humanitarian mission to Kherson. Drones and artillery hit 4 marked UN vehicles of the Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Aid and the World Food Program in Kherson. Now, guys, just as an aside, I want to point out to you that there is a person on this app who shall remain nameless in Kherson telling the world that he's the only humanitarian aid there, that places like the UN, the World Food Program, WHO, and Red Cross will not go near Kherson. This is a lie. This is a lie. Anyone who says that these organizations are not operating there is lying to you for their own gain. It is just that simple. And here's the evidence. The evidence is that they hit the trucks yesterday. The director of the Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Aid in Kherson was in the convoy when it was hit. He has posted a video of it to his Twitter feed. You can see it there. You can see it there. So the UN is there, the Red Cross is there, WHO is there, the World Food Program is there. It is a lie if anyone says to you, they're not here, we're the only ones here, send us your money. Not true. Okay? Now, that was not the only strike against humanitarian infrastructure. Yesterday, we saw Kyiv hit by 3 glide bombs. These are those big, dumb bombs that the Russians use to make craters out of cities. They hit a hospital yesterday. Zelensky said that this was an utterly cynical attack. The Estonian prime minister called it a new level of barbarism for the Russians to strike those in the hospital seeking medical aid in a time of crisis. One of the residents of the hospital was quoted in an interview as saying, "Russia says it doesn't hit civilians. What are we? I'm a civilian, and I was in this hospital when it was hit." The idea that Russia doesn't target civilians is the worst kind of Russian nonsense propaganda and lies. We see it the fact that I don't have water right now tells you that the Russians are constantly hitting civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. Now, another artery of the Russian war machine and money machine, the oil machine, has been severed. As of midnight tonight, local time, so it's already happened for us, Serbia's only oil refinery, which is Russian-owned, is facing a complete shutdown. Now, this is important because U.S. sanctions and European sanctions have been placed against the Russian owners of this pipeline, or of this oil refinery, the Pančevo oil refinery in Serbia. These sanctions are threatening to close the pipeline. Close the refinery entirely. Because the refinery gets all its oil from a pipeline that goes through Croatia. That pipeline has had an exemption. That exemption no longer exists. Croatia, as an EU member who is enforcing US and EU sanctions against the Russians, has shut that pipeline down as of midnight tonight. No more Russian oil is flowing through Croatia to Serbia. Now, that refinery is 45% owned by the Serbian government, and some of that is private investment too. It's 55% owned by Russian entities. Specifically, Gazprom owns 45% of it outright. It is not unfair to point out that this is the only oil refinery in Serbia. It produces 80% of the gasoline and diesel that the Serbian economy requires for everyday use. So this is going to hit Serbia hard. As far as that goes, I'm fucking sorry. You've had 4 fucking years to make a change. You've had 4 fucking years. And no changes have been forthcoming. In fact, I'm sorry, I'm terribly congested this evening. In fact, you have instead let Russia sink its hooks into you, and you have repeatedly taken Russia's side in this conflict and repeated Russian propaganda to your detriment in the eyes of the world. Serbia now is in play. We talk about the dominoes to watch. What is Russia's hold on Serbia? That oil pipeline and that refinery. With it gone, what is Serbia to do? They could force a sale of the refinery so it's no longer Russian, and then start buying non-Russian oil. That would be a thing to do. But with that pipeline and refinery gone, Russia's hold over Serbia is weakened. Just like they've lost their hold over Armenia, over Azerbaijan, over Kazakhstan, over Syria. We are watching Russian power in the world wane. Now, one of the things that we have not talked much about is the front line. because the front line has been, I'm sorry, hold on for 1 second. So sorry, I've been dealing with a cold since Saturday. Okay. One of the things that we have not talked much about is the front line, because the front line has not been moving. Yeah, thanks, Kiwi. Now, look, the reality is that just because the front line hasn't been moving doesn't mean that it's not still kinetic and violent. It is. It's a nightmare for both sides. However, it is clear that Russian momentum is over. Over. Russian momentum is over. Now look, we saw on August 4th that big breakthrough of Russian infiltration units that managed to get 16 miles behind the Ukrainian front lines around Dobropilla, right? And then we saw the Ukrainians move in brigades and cut them off at the knees. There are still 3 large pockets of Russian soldiers trapped, surrounded by Ukrainians, facing starvation, food shortages, water shortages, ammunition shortages. They are trapped there. The Russians want to save them. And so they keep sending in troops. Now, up until a few days ago, it's been small pockets of infiltration units. What's been working, right, to get Russian soldiers behind Ukrainian lines. The only thing is, Magyar's birds are there. And these drones have been targeting the back end of Russian logistics, eliminating the Russian reinforcements that are coming in before they even get to the contact line. Now that the rain is coming, the cold, wet mud season is coming, the number of roads available to the Russians is minimal. The Ukrainians know where the trucks are driving. The rear echelon has become a kill zone for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are destroying everything that moves on those roads. A single motorcycle going down the road, what the Russians are now calling the road of death, will be targeted by drones. I saw some video today of Russians on motorcycles traveling some of these roads. On every bend, on every turn in the road, there is a burned out Russian vehicle or 2 or 3 or more. The Ukrainians target them on the bends in the roads because that's where they slow down, right? The Russians call it the road of death. And the Ukrainians are eating them up along those roads as they try to get to the Russians that the Ukrainians have encircled. Now, their tactics changed. So the Ukrainians have been hitting the logistics and the rear guard, right? The Russian tactics have changed in the last 96 hours or so. Last night I mentioned, I believe last night I mentioned that there was a large armored assault in the Shakove direction that had been defeated. But I didn't have any numbers on it, so I didn't want to talk about it. Let's talk about it now. In the direction of the Azov First Corps, in several waves from multiple directions, Russians attacked with 35 armored fighting vehicles. Some of those were tanks. There were at least 6 tanks. We're not sure exactly how many tanks there were. The results of this first attack about 96 hours ago, as reported by the Ukrainian armed forces, included 107 Russians killed in action, 51 wounded in action. Now, I would point out that kill ratio to wounded ratio is basically reverse from what any modern army would find acceptable, right? You're supposed to have 3 wounded for every 1 you lose. For the Russians, it's 2 killed for every 1 wounded. These are not numbers that are sustainable. Of the 35 armored fighting vehicles that went in, 16 were destroyed. 3 tanks were destroyed. 1 armored recovery vehicle was destroyed. 41 motorcycles and 1 light vehicle, all destroyed, and the attack repelled. Now that would be bad enough. But they tried it again yesterday. The same freaking thing. These guys are one-trick ponies. They cannot get it in their heads that they are fighting a modern war and that the Ukrainians, while they may not have air superiority over traditional fighter jet air superiority over the skies of Ukraine, in the microcosm of the battlefield, their drones clearly have air superiority over the battlefield, because the Russians tried another large armored assault yesterday with 17 armored personnel carriers plus some tanks. Of the 17 armored personnel carriers, 4 were destroyed, 3 tanks were destroyed, 3 motorcycles were destroyed, and 78 confirmed troop losses for the Russians. The latest number of Russian personnel lost is just over 1.1 million. 1.1 million. And this war has lasted almost as long as World War II did for the Russians. Hey, Tycho, you in Hamburg? My favorite sandwich of all time comes from there. Ukraine destroyed the incoming invaders with drones, artillery, and mines. The area has been heavily mined using drone mining equipment, which is just fascinating in its own way. These attacks included elements of the 55th Army, the 8th Army, and the 810th Naval Infantry of the Russian Federation forces, all of which were repelled. Now, deliciously demoralizing. That's a nice turn of phrase, laddie. I might steal that. We don't know how many Russian troops are left alive inside those 3 cauldrons. But every day it's less and less. There are fewer and fewer Russian troops to save for the Russians trying to get to them. Now nearby, right? So this is on the northeast edge of Pokrovsk. And if you just come a little south from there into the contested gray zone, in the Novotoretska direction, Russians ran into a razor wire massacre, is what they're calling it. The defense lines of tank traps, dragon's teeth, and razor wire are extensive in this area. The Ukrainians had time to build these defense lines. Remember, the Russians that moved in the infiltration groups got behind the Ukrainian defense lines. They're now trapped there. And the Russians coming in to try to save them are coming up against these defensive lines. Look, guys, I don't suggest that anybody go on Telegram and look at the kind of videos that I look at some days. But I can tell you right now, I saw one video clip from a drone, and it showed a length of razor wire that couldn't have been 3 football fields long, about 300 meters. And in that razor wire, I counted over 50 bodies of Russians who came up against the razor wire, couldn't get through, and then were taken out either by drones or snipers or whatever, right? Or blood loss from the razor wire. I don't know. It's a killing zone. The drone then flew over the tank traps, and down in those pits, they're just littered with bodies. I mean, I couldn't even keep count. It's awful. It's awful. The invaders are not having a good time. So in that one video clip, there were no fewer than 50 Russians tangled and dead in the razor wire, with more bodies filling the tank traps. The reserves are cut off. Forces near Dobrapilla have been surrounded on all sides, and trying to save them is becoming a suicide mission, as the Ukrainian defensive lines force the Russians into particular roads and pathways, which are now Ukrainian kill zones. They are completely surveilled from the air by the drones, and the Ukrainians are just hitting them over and over again. So that's what I just said. In desperation, it appears, Russian commanders blew the ammonia pipeline, sending poison into the lowlands, causing disruptions on both sides. Now, ammonia is a choking agent. It's potentially fatal if you get enough of it in you, right? And it's heavier than air, so it sinks down, but it's light enough that the wind will move it. It is important to note here that the Russians claim the Ukrainians blew up that pipeline. How do we know? How do we know who's telling the truth? You know, without our own biases coming into play. Well, Hamish de Bretton Gordon, who is a chemical weapons expert and nuclear weapons expert, said that he looked at the prevailing winds, and there is no doubt that if the Ukrainians had blown it, they would have known that the winds would have carried it to their positions. Therefore, it is most likely that it was the Russians that did it. Now, the Russians have actually done this before. Hamish de Bretton Gordon talked about his work with the Peshmerga in Syria, where something very similar was done by Russian forces in Syria during that conflict. And of course, the Russians continue to use CS gas and chlorpyrifos, two chemical agents that are banned by the Chemical Weapons Treaty, to which Russia is a signatory. This is not all. Up in Sumy, in Yanikivka, Russian soldiers there released a video saying that they are Surrounded and all hope is lost. In Oletsivka, the 225th Separate Rifle Brigade has moved in, and there is fighting in the streets of Oletsivka. In this world that the Russians live in, the reality for commanders on the ground is that failure means disgrace, demotion, and potentially detainment. They are willing to poison and sacrifice their own men as long as it hurts the Ukrainians. That's where we are at. And that is why I say with confidence today, Russia is losing. Ukraine is winning. Ukraine is reclaiming battlefield positions up and down the line. Recently, we saw the Russians break into Dnipropetrovsk, a sector, a region of Ukraine that no Russian had ever set foot in before. not one of the territories illegally annexed. Ukraine has driven them out of there. Now dig this. So we have news coming out of that area that the 141st has been reorganized under a new commander named Shevchuk, which is about the most Ukrainian name you could have. It's like the Ukrainian equivalent of Smith. This commander Shevchuk has reorganized the 141st under NATO standard operational procedures. No, right, he's thrown out the Soviet dogma and doctrine playbook. Reorganized everything in line with NATO maneuver warfare capabilities. Under his direction, with this new operational standard and procedures, the Russian offensive lines in Dnipropetrovsk have collapsed, and the Russians have been repelled into Zaporizhia. Now, we're talking about a 3.5 kilometer advance for the Ukrainians in one day. Not only that, elements of the 33rd and the 225th separate motorized rifle brigades of the Ukrainian armed forces have liberated at least 2 towns in Zaporizhia. And in Stepove, there is fighting in the streets where the Ukrainians have turned half the city into gray zone. The Russians are falling back on all fronts, from Sumy to Zaporizhia. And the only thing they can do with any effectiveness is hit humanitarian aid convoys of the UN, hospitals in Kyiv, and the water treatment plant in my neighborhood. That's the battlefield update. And it's all good news. I mean, look, I don't want to give the wrong impression. The fighting is a nightmare. It's got to be very difficult for the Ukrainians as well. But the reality is that the Russians are losing. They are losing ground now every day. They are giving up frontline positions, and they have lost all forward momentum. Now, last 2 things here. I can't find any information on what's happening at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The last word we had was that the Russians were trying to hook up the secondary power lines. We do not have word on whether or not that has been successful, but I'm going to try to find out tomorrow. In Feodosia, I have an update on I have a damage assessment on Feodosia. Now, to remind everybody, Feodosia Oil Terminal, the marine oil terminal in Feodosia, Crimea, is the principal oil distribution hub and fuel distribution hub, both for the Russian military in Crimea and the civilian population. A year ago, there were 34 tanks for storage there. Then it got hit a year ago, and 12 of them were destroyed, leaving 22 tanks. The facility has been hit twice in the last week. And we now have a damage assessment from the Ukrainian armed forces that says 11 additional tanks were damaged or destroyed. One of them was empty. 2 of them contained gasoline, so you can be sure they're among the destroyed. And 8 of them contained diesel. Diesel, the lifeblood of an army today. 8 massive 2,000-ton oil or diesel tanks destroyed in Feodosia. That leaves 11, less than just about 1/3 of the original storage capacity. Ukraine is turning Crimea into a desert. making it untenable for the Russian occupiers to continue there in any significant way. We know that fully half the gas stations in Crimea are already closed. We know that there is gas rationing. I think we can expect, as the fuel crisis spreads and as the storage facility continues to be whittled away, that we will see an extension or a deepening of those rationings and of gas station closures. I think that's a fair assessment. Okay. Again, a very big happy birthday to our boy Nutmegger and to his dad Seawolf, who are the sponsors of tonight's live. Thank you, guys. Big thank you to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and of course to the moderator team, Maddie, Feisty, Jay, Pete, and Travis. Thank you all very much. And with that, we'll go to Q&A, open Q&A. Questions, comments? Boy, it would be nice to see those tomahawks come in, wouldn't it? That would really, I mean, the term game changer is overused, I think, but this might be a game changer, depending on how many they can get. I'm with you, Drew. They need more air defense in this country more than anything. Do we see Russian soldiers repeating 1917? I feel like that's kind of a pipe dream. Remember, the Russian soldiery is either fanatically dedicated to Mother Russia, or they're there for the money, but they can't escape because of the barrier troops. If they try to surrender, if they try to retreat, they get shot by their own people, which is the only reason Russia's still moving forward. And remember, for a lot of these units, they don't even get an ammo pack until the tank drops them off at the front line, because their commanders can't trust them. They're afraid they'll get fragged. So we have seen lots of defections and desertions. And in fact, they have been increasing, right? We've seen them go from single guys to a couple of guys to entire companies. And in fact, we had 3 stories in the last 2 weeks of companies that fragged their commander and then surrendered en masse to the Ukrainians, as large as 19 people at a time. So Ivan, it's important to remember too that 1917 was not a single event where 2 million Russian soldiers walked off the battlefield. It was dribs and drabs until it became whole units. And it took a year. So could we see something like that beginning? Maybe. But I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for that to happen. Hey, Refurb. Sorry, Aaron. Hobbs means to, frag means to eliminate your commander by kinetic means. Right, so you shoot him in the head and then you can surrender. Or if these guys had any sense, frag your commander and then turn your guns on your real enemy, Moscow. But I don't think we're going to see that happen. I mean, it could happen. I'll tell you, if it were to happen, you know where it would happen from, I think, right now? Strelkov. If somebody broke Strelkov out of prison and he could get to the right men, he would probably be able to persuade them to turn their guns on the Kremlin and put him in charge. Don't count out Igor Girkin yet. It's true he's locked up, but somehow he keeps getting his words out to the public. He is feared by Putin. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Could he be a new Caesar? I don't know. I don't know. Very hard when you're in prison and so easily poisoned. The Wagner Group has been reorganized. The elements of Wagner, so after Prigozhin was offed by Putin, and I think it's safe to say that, after Prigozhin and all the heads who were all on one plane for some reason at the same time met their fiery end when the new refrigerator blew up in their private plane, the elements of Wagner were either absorbed into the Russian army or into private paramilitary companies associated with organizations like Rosneft and Gazprom and other big companies inside Russia that maintain their own private armies. All of the Wagner troops in Africa were reorganized as the Africa Corps, dropping the pretense of not working for and being funded by the Kremlin that the veneer of Wagner had given them. So they are openly murdering African civilians every day, driving Islamist elements out of Mali and Sudan, working against the legitimate government of Sudan, all the while exploiting cobalt mines, gold mines, silver mines, copper mines, and timber reserves in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and in a dozen other countries across Africa. So the Africa Corps, which for anybody who's a student of history knows that's what Rommel's forces were called. So it's a terrible name. They're still very active in Africa and causing a lot of heartache. In a lot of ways, Aaron, yeah. Well, I mean, I keep saying, right, we've been in World War III since February of 2022. It's just that it's 1936. Well, now it's more like 1939. McDonald's does have their own private army, right? It's headed by the General Monopoly Man. Hey, Pingu. So, guys, we got 9 minutes left. Hey, Arna. How you doing, buddy? It reminds me, seeing Arn come in, it does remind me, Arna just increased. He's a paid Patreon supporter, has been for going on 2 years now. And a stalwart friend of this channel. And when we started the membership drive, Arna increased his membership tier. So I might ask the paid Patreon supporters to think about increasing your membership tier to help move those goalposts. If you are new to the channel, I encourage you to get a free Patreon subscription and check it out on Patreon. If you have been a free Patreon supporter, now is the time. If you can afford to kick me $5 a month, please do. There's really a lot more we could be doing. And if I can get 100 people to kick me $5 a month, it will change my life and the nature of this channel. It really will. So if you want to invest in that future, I invite your investment. I don't know if that's Jan or Jan. I hesitate to call you one or the other. Hey, Nick. Hey, Laddie. My question, Laddie, for you is, because you've been coming in here all this time, right? You're always in the live for must be 2 years. And I can't help but wonder, is Laddie the dog or is that you? I'm just wondering. It's a good looking dog, by the way. I love me a Labrador. Hey, Space Ghost. How you doing? Arn, I don't know what you mean by the first. And look, if anybody here, like Daryl Roberts, is a subscriber to my channel here on TikTok, I don't know what happened to your subscriptions. I had 30 subscribers. They're all gone. They're turned into super fans, and I'm not getting any revenue this month from them. That's $100 that normally comes in. It's gone. I don't know what. TikTok is apparently keeping it all. So if you're a subscriber, listen, I appreciate the thought, but it's not doing me any good. I encourage you to cancel your subscription and join the Patreon, please. I mean, it's ridiculous. I had 33 subscribers. Right now, TikTok already takes 60% of that money. So that's about $3 a piece. I should be getting $99, right? Nothing. Nothing this month, according to my statement yesterday. No, Russia doesn't stand a chance against NATO. Of course not. Right? That's why what they're doing with NATO, sending unarmed drones into the airspace, is a provocation, not an attack. And NATO is strong enough to basically ignore it. They're like gnats. Well, thanks, Ivan. I sure appreciate it. If you don't have a Patreon account, I encourage you to get yourself a free Patreon account. I'm doing a new series on Patreon called Videos I Can't Show on TikTok. But I look at hundreds of videos trying to put together these lives every night and the videos that I post on TikTok. And there are lots that I just can't use because they don't meet TikTok's community guidelines or would result in a strike. No, you do not, Laddie. That is so, if that's true, that's awesome. Fascinating. Laddie there is working undercover to expose dogfighting rings in southeast Georgia. Interesting. Sorry, I got distracted by that. What was I talking about? Because that's amazing right there. That's absolutely amazing. So every week I come across dozens and dozens of videos that are compelling in their nature, but that I cannot use on TikTok. And I'm not talking about the gory stuff. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about like a Ukrainian soldier using his rifle to shoot down a Shahed drone. Like, what a shot, baby. Unbelievable. Or Russians crossing boats and rivers and blow up boats. Sitting ducks for drones. Things like that. Very compelling videos. My favorite video this week was the one of the Russians showing off their brand new electronic warfare equipment, saying, "This is the end of drones, baby. No drones will be able to fuck with us anymore. No way." And then you see the video from the attack drone coming in to blow up the electronic warfare equipment. And these idiots videotaping it and posting it. I mean, insanity. So videos like that, they're over on the Patreon. You join the Patreon, there's a link in the description. The best way to do it, and I hate to ask you to, but they have an app. The best way to do it is to download the Patreon app and then just subscribe to my channel. And you can find me. Guys, I'm sorry. I can't figure out how to make a comment here. Oh, there it is. On the Patreon, my name is spelled this way. I have it Latinized on here, but that's the way it's spelled on the Patreon. Can I pin that comment, or can somebody... Pete, are you there? Would you pin that comment? Oh, no, there it is. Thanks, Pete, or whoever. Okay, it's 2 minutes to the... Thank you, Peter. Good talking to you the other day, pal. I love, some of you people I know for years on this channel, right? And then when I finally get to talk to you in person and I get to hear your voice, it's so freaking cool. It's really awesome. There's a notice here that Bluebird Rogue will lose their subscription benefits soon. Good. Please, Bluebird, cancel your TikTok subscription and join my Patreon, please. Okay, so guys, we got 1 minute left. Big thanks and happy birthday to Nutmegger. Seawolf, thanks for all your support, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I certainly hope that Nutmegger had a good birthday, and you did too. Thanks, Bluebird. And big thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. Big thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, and to the best moderators on the Tickety Talk. Thank you all so much. Again, we are in the midst of the Patreon membership drive. If you are a person who values this channel, wants to see it do more and stay on the air, please consider joining the Patreon if you can kick me $5 a month. Thank you very much. Final thoughts, anything from anybody? I'll tell you what my final thought is tonight. In the first year that I was here in Ukraine, I had to admit, no side was winning, but Ukraine was losing faster than Russia. Then somewhere in 2024, that changed, and Russia started losing faster than Ukraine. And now as we enter the fall and winter strike campaigns, I feel I can say with confidence, Russia is losing. And it's not just that Russia is losing. Ukraine is winning. Every day we see an erosion of Russian capabilities, while every day we see a new emergent Ukrainian capability. Thanks, Paul. I said to some people tonight, I'm absolutely convinced that before too long, we'll be living in a world where we can all go for kebabs at 2 a.m., where curfew will be lifted, military law will be over, the air raids will stop, airline travel will be restored, the lights and water will stay on. And the world will be a better place. Hey, Nana Pam. Oh, yeah, the U.S. is fucked, Little Red. You guys are fucked. I'm staying here, I think. Donald Trump is about to bring on a world recession. I'm sorry, a world depression. Might start out as a recession, but it's going to quickly evolve into a Great Depression. The U.S. debt crisis that he is creating, and make no mistake, it's a targeted creation. We all know, everybody who's studied economics knows where Donald Trump's policies lead. And that is what he wants. Yeah, Mike Kelly. Get the fuck out of here. The answer to that is no. I wouldn't buy gold or silver. No fucking way, dude. Not with gold topping 4,000 an ounce right now. That is not sustainable. The Russian oligarchs are buying all the gold because they're trying to get the fuck out of Russia. No, that's a bad move at this juncture, in my opinion. How does that benefit him? It's easy. It's simple. He bankrupts everybody, while he grifts for billions, and then him and his billionaire friends buy up the assets of America at pennies on the dollar. It's already happening with farmland. We're seeing record farm bankruptcies. And J.D. Vance, for example, I forget if it's $2 million. I think he has $2 million invested. I'm not sure about that. Fact check me on that. But J.D. Vance has a large sum of money invested in a company that does nothing but buy up foreclosed farmland. It's a fire sale. Remember, 98.999999% of all the wealth in Russia is owned by 400 people. That is the model that Donald Trump is bringing to the United States. Acre Trading, TFP Bobo, has the name of the company. Thank you. I did not have the name. Canada capitulated on tariffs. I have no idea what you're talking about, Paul, because as far as I can tell, Canada has just taken its business elsewhere. Kentucky bourbon manufacturers are going bankrupt because the Canadians have cleared it all from the shelves. Well, Mike Kelly, that's a different situation. The market is a different situation because there Trump is doing scaled market manipulation with his tariff threats. So you're not wrong about that, right? That's a real thing. But that's a different, if you will, spoke of this multi-pronged attack. The real attack is in the debt market, the treasury bills. The United States has never defaulted on a payment before. We're headed in that direction because of the huge transfer of wealth to the billionaire class with Trump's tax cuts and then his desperate attempt to replace that with taxes on the American people in the form of tariffs. This outmoded notion, which has been rejected for 150 years of economic theory, is a suicide run. White Flag wants to know, so where to put your money? I don't know the answer to that, pal. Well, that's nonsense about China owning the U.S. Don't be ridiculous. All these scare tactics about the Chinese buying U.S. farmland, they haven't bought, I think, 4 million acres. Now, that sounds like a lot, right? Ooh, 4 million acres. In the scheme of American farmland, that's a drop in the bucket. I mean, there are single owner ranches in Texas that are 1 million acres with one family ownership. So that scare is nonsense. And if you're talking about American debt that the Chinese own, that's an investment for them. Now that is a problem because we're starting to see near peer countries that hold American treasury bills start to offload them on the secondary market. That is an erosion in confidence. And that is going to be a problem. It's not that we borrow. You're right, Mike, right? We sold, the Chinese bought a lot of treasury bills, T-bills. And that is American debt. That's how we raise money. But we have always paid on that debt because we always invested it in things that made money. Trump is canceling all of those projects. He's canceling them all. What should you do with your money? I don't know, because the dollar has lost more value under Donald Trump than it has in the last 50 years under any other American president or administration. Silver's through the roof. Gold is through the roof because everybody's panicking. So I do not think those are good buys right now. Probably the currency that's going to hold its value best is the euro. Now that has its own risks. Pistol Pete says buy gold. Put it in a place where the sun don't shine for a while. J-Boy's got it right. Number one, don't panic. Don't panic. Don't be irrational. But also don't buy Bitcoin. I wouldn't be buying Bitcoin right now. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I would say owning your own property outright. Definitely don't buy a Tesla. I would say owning your own property outright. In a place, there you go, Mike. In a place where you're far away from most people and you can have a lot of guns is not a bad idea. I don't know about that, Nana Pam. I don't know if I'd be sewing it into the mattress, doll. Oh. Yeah. Listen to Warren Buffett on gold, Pistol Pete. Warren Buffett on gold. I'd give him a listen. You in Oklahoma, Refurb. Where are you at in Oklahoma? I like Oklahoma. It was in Oklahoma I discovered I'm allergic to... No, it wasn't. It was in Missouri. Never mind. It was in Missouri. I discovered I'm allergic to tumbleweed. It's about the only thing I'm allergic to. Well, Kurt, if you have the money for real estate, I would just wait a little while because the market is about to bust. European stock market, there might be some buys there, Flip. You might not be wrong. Pete's going to water the horses. That's awesome. That he has horses to water. Coweta, 17 miles southeast of Tulsa. Are you far from Cherry Creek? You know Cherry Creek? Is that what it's called? Cherry Creek. Night shift, Deb. Now Arn has a point. European weapons manufacturers, especially in Ukraine, G2. I like that. Oh, right on. I'm just waiting to hear from Refurb if I'm wrong about that or not. I feel like that's right by Cherry Creek, or like right by for the American West. So, not far. Cherry Creek is Little House on the Prairie, ha ha ha. I don't, not close to you. Okay, never mind. Maybe you're right, John. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. But I used to have friends there, and I could have sworn it was Cherry Creek. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's an echo of House on the Prairie. I'll have to take a look at a map. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, friends, Romans, countrymen, watch your six, everybody. Watch your six. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later.